Welcome to the podcast of the impossible. I'm Peter Wood, and today I have the pleasure of chatting with It's Mr. Magic Man himself, the one and only Kourosh Taie.
What's up, Peter?
It's the one and only Kourosh Taie. How are
back.
you? It's MrMagicMan.com. We talked about that a little bit. What inspired that initially? Do you remember where that came from?
It's not a great story, honestly. I was like trying to find a domain.
That's fine. That's a fine enough story.
And it's evolved. I've had other domains, I was trying to find a domain name where I could also register the handle on social media where it wasn't taken.
Smart. Yep.
And so part of it came from because a lot of times when I go to events, people don't remember my name, and my name's hard to say. By the way,
Sure.
I usually introduce myself as K.
Okay.
I just give them my first initial to
Sure.
make their lives easier.
Right.
And they'll be like, Magic Man.
Yeah. Okay.
They'll be like, all the time. They're like calling me Magic Man. So that's kind of like where that came from.
Right.
And I think Magic Man was taken.
Sure.
And then I was like, Mr. Magic Man. I was like, oh, but I can't use that handle on all social media. That's taken. I was like,
Okay.
It's Mr. Magic Man.
There you go.
But I've had the domain names evolve. I've had like theimpossibleisreal.com.
Okay. Cool.
Which was actually a quote from a David Blaine special where literally the line was "The impossible is real."
Right.
I like that. I was like, yeah, it's too long. I also have showmemiracles.com, which is like the one I usually say because
Sure.
when somebody's like, "What's your domain?" I go, "It's MrMagicMan.com." And they go, "Oh, Mr. Magic Man." I go, "No, you have to put the it's in." And then they're like, "Mr. Is it spelled out?" I was like, "No, that's too complicated." So now I just do showmemiracles.com, which redirects to "It's Mr. Magic Man."
That reminds me of like setting your Wi-Fi password to the words "same as yours."
Right.
And then when someone's like, "Hey, what's your Wi-Fi password?" "Oh, same as yours." Like, wait, but
That's funny. And you know what that reminds me of? The late Denny Haney.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if do you know what his Wi-Fi password was when you go to
No.
Denny Haney was a awesome magician who had a magic shop in Baltimore. Unfortunately, passed away. Not just a magic shop owner, but like an amazing performer. Denny's when you go to Denny's and you be like, "Hey, Denny, what's the Wi-Fi password?" You go, "It's in Tarbell." But
Nice.
if you don't know, Tarbell is, by the way, like this like encyclopedia of books for magic.
They're just out of frame.
Right, they're out of frame.
But yeah, they're here. They're here.
Like if you're any serious magician, you're gonna have the Tarbell collection. He goes, "It's in Tarbell." You go, "It's in Tarbell?" He goes, yeah. And I go,
That's great.
wait, like so I have to like pick up a Tarbell book and like no, the password is "It's in Tarbell." That was actually
I didn't know that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. That certainly good for a magic shop.
Yeah.
I'll have to mention. Denny. I went to Denny's multiple times as attending lectures.
Right.
And other public events like that. Because there was the trifecta of magic shops in Maryland. There was Barry's Magic Shop. There was the Magic Warehouse,
Right.
and then there was Denny Lee Magic Studio.
And now we're left with just the magic.
Just the Magic Warehouse.
Right.
But I have spent time behind the counter of both Barry's and the Magic Warehouse.
Yeah.
And from each of them, I have a polo shirt that has the logo embroidered on it.
Nice.
I don't wear them, but I have them. And so I kept thinking, like, can I just work at Denny's for like a week just to get the shirt? Like, can I, because just to tick off the, like, and be able to say like, oh yeah, all the magic shops that were open in my lifetime in Maryland, I've worked at just
Right.
because there were only 3. But then he up and died and have not had the opportunity. So, what a jerk, but that's okay.
Selfish.
I know,
Yeah.
I know, Denny.
Rest in peace, Denny. And
Man,
you know that
so
shirt
great.
would have reeked of cigarette smoke too.
That's true. Yeah. Denny definitely was loved the cigarettes, and when you would go to an event at his place, you didn't realize how much you smelled like cigarettes until like I would have to come home and just immediately all of those clothes go in the hamper
Right.
before I can go near the missus.
That's the
because,
interesting thing about scent. When you walk into a new environment,
Yeah.
you notice a smell, but then eventually your olfactory senses, like, they sort of just shut it out.
Yep.
I guess it's stimulus overload, so your brain's like...
Well, and it's like this is a new smell.
Right.
And once your brain has told the rest of you that like, okay, yeah, but this is just the way it's going to be now. And it's not a danger or a threat. So we're just going to then like, okay, well, I guess we'll just enjoy.
But then like you leave and then someone smells you like,
yeah,
where were you?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I always know when somebody, if I meet a magician and they bought a book at Denny's, cause it's just the strong scent of the cigarette smell coming off of
it. Yeah, thankfully, a lot of them he would like wrap in plastic at some point. Now he would probably holding a cigarette while he's wrapping it in plastic, But I definitely, I mean, I've got some Denny's books here, and you can still give the little scent of it, which is kind of fun now. Like
it is.
That's part of the antiquated,
part of the charm.
Yeah. But no, it was an awesome shop. But I should
phenomenal shop. Like literally one of probably. I mean, I haven't been to every magic shop in the world, hardly, not even close. Right. But definitely one of the best. Huge warehouse.
Yeah.
And they had a lot of amazing lectures there.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, the death of brick and mortar magic shops is really such a shame. And they were just what a wonderful like place for community. To like get together with other nerds, and nerd out, and
no, it is tough. I mean, that's the purpose of those places was to make money, but then they end up being a magnet in a way that like, I mean, I know that Michael's or AC Moore will have like weekend painting classes, but you're definitely not going to Michael's and hanging out with other artists,
right? It's so hard to run a magic shop because on one hand, brick and mortar stores are just dying in general, right?
Sure,
like there's like Amazon and things like that, and people just don't have too much incentive to go to a store. And then now we're talking such a niche market. We're talking about magic.
Yeah,
it's like there isn't a high demand for it. It's already a super niche market. So now we have the death of brick and mortar stores in general because online is just so much more convenient, and prices are usually better online because a brick and mortar store has all these other overhead costs.
Yeah.
So they can't compete with the price. And then on the other hand, it's like, again, going back to the niche thing, it's like how many people are actually consumers of this product, and it just makes it impossible. I don't think anybody gets into the magic business for not like performers, but like as a magic shop for the money. Denny, man, I miss him so much. Like I would walk into Denny's shop, and it was quite a schlep for me to go to Denny's shop because it wasn't close by. But I'd go there and be like, "Hey, Denny, how's it going?" He was such a curmudgeon. He goes, still running a magic shop.
Yeah. Yep.
I miss that.
Yeah, no, I think, I asked Barry Taylor that question point blank when he was on the podcast. Like, why did you go from becoming a performer making money and you decided you wanted to stop making money and do a magic shop? Now, in his case, he did both concurrently for many decades, but his answer literally was, and essentially I wanted to be a kid in my own candy shop, like he wanted
absolutely.
to be able to kick the tires on all the new toys that came out. And as opposed to just buying literally everything that comes out for himself, he was able to, basically buy it for the rest of us, but he was the one who was playing with it first and foremost.
Right.
So I've been fortunate to be able to sort of piggyback off of that, where if you do spend time behind the counter at a shop, I get to play with a lot more things than I own, because you can not only are you with the inventory, but then people are coming in often with old stuff or obscure stuff, trying to, hey, do you know how we could fix this or whatever? And so I get exposed to a lot more than if I was just buying things for myself, But yeah, I'll be curious to see sort of the future in terms of, like, you've never been a part of a magic club, right? Like, you've never gone to
I've never joined a magic club.
Yeah.
There's IBM, International Brotherhood of Magicians. There's SAM, Society of American Magicians.
Yep.
I've never joined them. I've been to some of their events, but no, I like never really joined any club.
Yeah, and I think one of the challenges, which you might, I don't know if this has been your experience, like when you have gone to some of the club public events, is that, like, I also, from working behind a magic shop counter, 95% of magicians are
hobbyists. Yeah, hobbyists.
You know,
very few of them actually work professionally.
Right. And what drives the market, whether it's books, whether it's tricks, whether it's instructional stuff, are people who do not do it professionally.
Right. Like I would go to lectures at Barry's or Denny's, and I remember there's plenty of people at these lectures that would buy up a ton of stuff, but that stuff was never going to see the light of day.
Yeah.
Because they were never going to perform it, except it was either just going to end up in like a drawer, or maybe they'd perform it for a friend or family member here, but they weren't actually ever going to perform it professionally because most magicians are not professional performers. They're hobbyists.
Yeah. Well, I have been involved with magic clubs over the years and still am. And one of the challenges for me is that I have to realize that why I'm going is very different from why most of the folks there are going, because most of them are looking for, it's a once a month outlet for me to do a magic trick for other people and other people who will be nice to me if it goes poorly or if it's not really well practiced or whatever.
Right.
And then I'm going there not only for sort of the fraternal hanging out with like-minded people thing, but also because if I'm trying out something new, I love trying it out for that audience first and then getting feedback and suggestions. And that's very different. We're going into it with very different goal sets, you know.
And you bring up an interesting point because people think our art is so secretive, and like I don't know if you've gotten this question. I'd be like, well, if magicians never reveal their secrets, how does somebody ever become a magician?
Sure, yeah.
But like what people don't realize is like in our community, we're actually super collaborative, and we are very open to sharing with one another. If you go to like lectures or conventions, we're constantly sharing stuff. And collaboration, I think, is actually key to improvement. Like, if we kept everything guarded, I don't think things would like improve. Like I've come up with material where like I shared it with somebody else, and they came back to me and said, "Hey, I have a suggestion on this or whatever." And like it just, and then I come up with something else, and we just go back on this collaborative process, and it's like it's extremely rewarding. Where this routine I might have come up with is now 100 times better because I ended up sharing it with friends and they gave me feedback on it and vice versa. So we're really collaborative. And I guess even though it is a secretive community, we aren't necessarily so guarded with each other.
Right. Sure.
Which is kind of cool.
Well, I think a lot of times that, at least for me, and maybe you feel this as well, is like, I can't, like that sometimes is the only place where I am allowed to share these secrets. And a lot of times the secret is really cool. And it's really like, sometimes it's dirty and basic and you want to keep it from the audience, but especially with some of the like gadget magic type stuff, it's often more exciting to reveal the method and the secret behind it.
I think most magic tricks, the effect is amazing, but then when you find out the method, it's disappointing.
Yeah.
But there are some rare ones where the method is actually more impressive than the effect. And but I wouldn't say that's usually the case, but there's a few exceptions to that.
Yeah. No, and there's that I think that especially happens with technology. And I want to be careful, I don't want to disillusion, pun intended, anyone in terms of like giving away specific secrets or whatever. But I am definitely guilty of falling more in love with the very clever electronic or mechanical method behind something, and then sort of working backwards. Okay, but like, what does it actually look like to the audience? Like how are they perceiving it? And also as a professional, realizing that, if it is a thing that can break or a battery that can die versus I just learn a little bit of sleight of hand that can make that same effect happen. Like if it looks the same to the audience, and there's less for me to rely on behind the scenes, I probably should use that method as opposed to the one that is thrilling and the one that people would expect, but it might fail,
I went to a convention in, it was Columbus, Ohio.
This is a magic convention. Okay. Yep. Probably Magi Fest.
Magi Fest.
Yeah.
Ohio. And there was a booth where a creator was selling one of his inventions. And I saw this invention, and the method was super clever.
Okay.
Really clever. Like literally, like it's just amazing knowing how it works, right? But I thought the effect was weak.
Okay.
Right? Like it was like meh.
Yeah.
Right? It's like one of these rare tricks where like actually the method is more impressive than the effect.
Yeah.
And I actually said to our buddy Adam Stone, who you've had on this show, he was with me. I said, Adam, I like want to buy this just to prove that it's not going to get great reactions. Like it's very meh,
sure.
right?
Okay.
And so I bought it and I went out and performed it. This isn't a type of thing I would like do it like a paid gig, but I went out and tried it out. And I was 100% right.
Right.
Like the method is genius.
Sure. Yep. Yeah.
And the effect is just mediocre at best.
Yeah.
And
I do wonder, as technology evolves, like I already have people accusing me of using e-ink on something that is a prediction or a playing card. And that's only going to get
I'm so
worse.
glad you brought this up. You have no idea how many events I go to where people come up with these crazy theories on how I accomplish. And a lot of times people look up and they're looking for cameras.
Right.
And they think like I go to like every venue and just plant cameras everywhere. And I'm like, I literally... This is the first time I'm here, like you.
Yeah.
And but I don't know if like I should take it as a compliment because like they're so like left with no answers that they're now jumping to the craziest conclusions.
Sure.
But like a lot of times they think what we're doing in a James Bond type stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that stuff doesn't exist. Like it does.
Sure.
In the industry.
Yeah.
But a lot of times what I'm doing is Occam's razor, which is like the most simplest solution is like the actual solution. And they're just going like MI6 type stuff. Yeah. And that stuff does exist, but like, you're right. As technology evolves, people will be like, oh, well, you just have a Bluetooth printer in your pocket.
Right.
Which is plausible.
Sure. Yep.
But it's actually like a totally like analog method.
Yep.
And, but it's hard competing in this day and age of technology, because of the assumptions and people know what's possible. And a lot of times they jump to a conclusion that it makes sense in the age we live in, but it's actually not. And like they'll be like, well, you just have this electronic thing. It's like, no, I literally like just like palm the card.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yep. Well, and often, I mean, if you just think about like, okay, here's my magic trick. I'm going to go in the corner of the room so that I can't, see what you're doing. And you are going to name any celebrity. And I'm going to tell you what year, when they were born, and what they're famous for.
Okay,
right?
Yeah.
That would have been a great trick before we all had the internet in our pockets.
Yep.
And there's so much, certainly, I think, in terms of mentalism about like knowing the unknowable, just because we have that information available to us now.
Yeah, and sometimes I reveal things about people, and they go, "Oh, well, you must have just researched me on social media."
Right,
and that's not what I did.
Yeah,
but that is a plausible solution.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, and I do think I don't think it's going to get worse. I mean, it'll become more of a challenge as things progress. But I think there will always be opportunities for how we can prove to people that what we're doing is not through those methods. And even like there's a thing that I do where people people consistently kept guessing they thought it was voice recognition technology. What they thought what I was using is that I had my phone in my pocket, and when they said a thing, it was because Alexa is so common, right?
Yeah,
like that's an easy, and that technology has gotten there. But I've been able to tweak the routine so that when they give me the information now, it is not verbalized ever. It's just
I've literally had to make the same adjustment. Where somebody commits to something and I ask them, please don't say it out loud because they would oftentimes jump to the conclusion that, well, it must be some sort of voice recognition.
Sure. Yep.
So we definitely have to adjust to those.
Yeah.
Because if they think that we're using tech that's not very magical.
Agreed. I mean, even because that's what's strange about, you mentioned Occam's razor, but like technology is changing that. Like it is now possible. The simplest explanation may be that you just have an app that does it.
But like a lot of times people say that magic has been on the forefront of technology.
Right.
Because, as magicians who are trying to create the impossible, oftentimes we look at we are on the forefront of technology because we're looking at ways to achieve the impossible.
Yeah.
But now it's now that things are catching up, people now are assuming we're doing things that, and not not that those aren't achievable ways to do it, but a lot of times we're not doing it those ways.
Well, and it is interesting. I mean, if you look back in the history books from 150, 200 years ago, it's funny how magician also gets sort of the magicians and the jugglers and the the scientists of when even some of the earliest Nikola Tesla demonstrations were kind of presented in a sort of theatrical environment, like as though it were a sideshow or a circus kind of a thing. And I think that, magicians sort of got in that world. And also, it is just about the spread of information, where if I am the one in my circle who knows about electromagnets and nobody else does, then I can do some really magical things until other people find out about it. Right. But the fact that, there's a paint that is so black that it sucks in all light and there's literally no reflection to it.
Right.
That is the kind of thing the magicians would have been using, except now it's just out there and known,
Right.
And that's, again, both good and bad. We've talked before about how the internet has allowed more people to, especially in remote places where they don't have a magic shop or they don't have a lot of good books in the library. It's lovely that the internet is able to open the door to magic for them.
The internet's been such a double-edged sword because it's allowed this accessibility to our art that never existed before. But on the other hand, it's helped, and it's brought a lot of people into magic that would not necessarily have ever found our art form.
Yeah.
And having fresh blood and fresh ideas and everything is awesome. But on the other hand, the double-edged sword is in terms of exposure.
Yep.
And accessibility to information, and a lot of times people may try to find what we do and they'll find an answer which is not the correct solution.
Right.
But as long as it's a plausible solution, they'll just assume that that's what we did.
Yeah.
And even if though they don't have the right answer, and I know, by the way, pretty much any performer who's on Fool Us is going to end up having an exposure video uploaded by somebody on YouTube on how they did it. And I know you've had it done. And
I did.
It was not the correct method.
I mean, and not only was it incorrect, he gave me a lot more credit than I deserve.
Right.
The fake explanation, that his theory is putting me in a much makes it look like I'm working a lot harder than I was.
Right. So you got more credit, but it's actually interesting. Because sometimes people go, I'm going to go Google what you did.
Yeah.
And what I did may be a unique creation that's not on YouTube, but they might find something similar.
Sure.
Because let's say vanishing a coin, there might be 1,000 or more ways to do it.
Yeah.
And if they find a plausible explanation, that might not have been the way I did it. But if they find a plausible explanation, they'll just be like, well, you did that.
Yeah, sure. Sure. And I think that would have happened in books previously if they went to the library and checked out a book on magic and it shows how to vanish a coin. But that's a lot of that shows a lot more commitment as opposed to just pulling out your smartphone and how to make a coin disappear.
It's definitely more commitment.
So I think I agree it's not the same. But one of my favorite things about the internet is a website called itsmrmagicman.com. And you know why I love that website?
Why is
because
that, Peter?
Well, that is where you can go and find out all the cool stuff about Kourosh. So if you do the social media, you can Kourosh's handle there is It's Mr. Magic Man. So again, ITSMR and then Magic Man. And then your website for all sorts, the private events and company parties and all the things that you do in the Baltimore and DC area. That is also It's MrMagicMan.com. Same sort of thing there. This was great fun. Thank you for coming and hanging out here with
pleasure.
me. And
Thank you again for having me.
yeah, and thank you to our listener here and viewer for coming and hanging out with us.
Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, this is going to do it for this episode of the podcast of the Impossible. But once you're finished on Kourosh's website, if you want to head on over to mine, it is oftheimpossible.com. And that's where you can find stuff about public shows, all of my social media, and of course, the Museum of the Impossible Project. I'm Peter Wood. Thanks.